Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of specific questions about Valerie Biel's amazing Circle of Nine series, we're going to deep dive on the setting. So Valerie's stories are inspired by her travels and her insatiable curiosity about all things historical. When she's not traveling or writing, she's helping other authors with book marketing and publicity, and she is amazing. Her award-winning Circle of Nine series takes readers across Ireland and back through the centuries, focusing on a group of 9 women who have a unique responsibility to protect ancient Celtic traditions. So welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews, and welcome to you, Val.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I am so excited to talk about this and the places in the books because they are real places. So nice opportunity for me to, just because this is a dream of mine to take people on like a book tour of Ireland, right? So
yeah, I would A, go on that 100%, and B, then we could biff over to England and I can take people around Bath. So
we would have so much fun. And actually, what we could do this could be like a month-long tour. We could really have a great time.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Who's in? Let's do
Yeah,
it.
right. Yeah, just add in your comments. I'm in, and we'll set up the tour.
Well,
and maybe we could get Molly McRae's. She has a Highland bookshop series in Scotland, so we can mix that in too.
There we go. Oh my gosh, a month in the UK. Well, Ireland as well. Like, yeah, only Northern Ireland's part of the UK. So before people start putting comments in saying, by the way, okay, I do know this. So.
Yeah, well, and Scotland doesn't want to be part of the UK anymore anyway. So
they don't, and that's a whole nother discussion. Oh my gosh, right?
Exactly. So the Circle of Nine series, which they're kind of young adult.
Yes.
And I'm not a young adult. I'm I'm a middle-aged to older adult.
Oh, we're all young adults in our mind, right?
I absolutely loved them. I was enchanted. Your main character, in the first one, all of her high school angst, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So it's like, yeah, they're young adult, but I think anybody of any age would enjoy reading them. They're so much fun. And then of course you get all of the back in history of her ancestors, and they are of different ages, so it really has something that anyone can relate to. So,
and it's interesting because I think I do have more fans that are like beyond their teen years. And that's lovely. I mean, and I still love to read young adult. I think it's because it's sort of like a hopeful jumping off point, in people's lives. Maybe it means that I'm somehow just stunted my emotional growth and I'm stuck in my teen. I don't even know. I don't know what it means. I like writing for that age group a lot, and writing characters of that age group. You mentioned something kind of interesting, though. I have all these other characters that are of different ages. And I independently published this series because I was getting some really weird reactions about, well, we don't know what shelf to put this on because it's got all these other characters. So even though the main character is turning 15 at the beginning of the book, at the beginning of the series, it weirded them out because it wasn't one thing.
Right.
So I'm happy to be multiple things with my writing. I don't know how to do anything else. That's how I do it. So
it comes across fantastic. So
okay, good. Thank you. Nice. I appreciate
that. So the books actually, they have the settings in the United States, also on magical mystical ley lines, and then also mostly in Ireland and back through the centuries in Ireland. So if you were going to put us all in a bus or a plane, where would you start us out?
Well, the main character is actually, she's an American girl. Her mom, she's of Irish descent. Her mom is Irish, and they live in the US. They live in a fictional town that I have not named outside of Boston, like within commute distance, let's say, to Boston. So let's just say we're going to get on a flight in Boston. That would be the logical thing. And it'll be an Aer Lingus flight, of course. That's the national airline of Ireland. And I appreciate them very much. I enjoy flying them. And we would land in Dublin. Um, and so I must say that the majority of things take place in County Donegal, which is the far northwestern county of the Republic of Ireland. It's almost, the access point is almost cut off by the way Northern Ireland cuts in at that point. So, and if I get too wonky on locations, I can always stop and kind of give you a locator so that you can kind of picture it. But if you're watching this and you're curious, pop a map up of
I was
Ireland.
just about to
So
say, oh, I
it's
so
like
wish I
share
had a map right
screen.
here.
Yeah, and then you can do that. So it's not typically on like the tours, right? Because it's not Galway, it's not Ring of Kerry, it's not Cork or Waterford or Dublin, city center. It's a little off the beaten path. It is one of my favorite places. Now, we've been to Ireland, my husband and I have to bring him along because I cannot drive on the other side of the road. I've tried. Can you do it? Have you done it?
Oh no, we don't even try. No, I hire a driver if I need
Yeah.
to go someplace in the middle of the Cotswolds.
So my husband does well, and I appreciate that very much. But yeah, I've tried it and I can't do it. So it's an interesting thing. Ireland, if you really want to go to some of these places, you're going to need to have a car or a smaller vehicle, or maybe you hire a driver and you have, like, if you have a group of people, maybe you have a smaller van. But as in England, the roads get very small. So you don't, like, the big tour buses can't go everywhere. And we appreciate that when we're driving and we're not having oncoming big tour buses, some of these roads. Okay, so we're going to spend, as we progress here, I'm going to progress logically for a tour, but the majority of things are over in this other county. But as we get off the plane, we're going to be exhausted, right? Of course, because you've done this overnight flight. And I don't know about you, but I have a hard time sleeping on planes. So I typically power through that first day. And there's some neat things in my books that are really very, very close actually to Dublin and the north side of Dublin where the airport is. So I would proceed with my wonderful tour group out to the Bóinne area. So it's the Bóinne River Valley. And there's a visitor center out there called Bóinne. And it is like the base for all the megalithic type monuments in the area, which includes a passage tomb called Newgrange, which a lot of people visit. And it also includes other structures that haven't been as excavated as that one. I mean, I can go down the archaeological rabbit hole here, and I think you'd probably appreciate it. I don't know if everybody else would appreciate it, but a lot of what I base my stories off of archaeological record and mythology that incorporates those places. And then, of course, there wasn't a lot of written word at that point when these Neolithic structures were built, right? So we're guessing as to what their uses were. But the Newgrange Passage tomb was for burials, except when they excavated it in the 60s, there were very few bones inside. So you walk in and it's very low, and you have to be careful not to bump your head. And you get to the center, so it's tight and you're walking in this little path, but in the middle there's a very big room and it's lit with electric light, except for the days right near the winter solstice. At sunrise, the window, which isn't really a window, but the opening above the door at sunrise on the winter solstice and the days just immediately before and after will illuminate that center of that tomb. And there is a lottery, which I enter and I never win, but I really want to win someday, I hope, where you can be one of the people in the tomb at sunrise. So and you can enter that lottery from afar, like you can enter it via email and they'll put you in. But it's a fascinating place, and it's really plays more of a central point in book 3. But it is I find very magical and interesting, and there's all the carvings on the rocks, and it's just, I don't know. And I made up a whole bunch of stuff that happens in that tomb that you can choose to believe or not believe, but I had fun writing it. So then nearby is the Hill of Tara, and if you ever hear that is had been a gathering spot for all the tribes that would come together, the clans of Ireland that would come together, the Celtic tribes, for gatherings, feasts, and also where they would choose their new king. And there is a stone there that is really there. It's called the Stone of Destiny, and it is supposed to help with the coronation of the new king. And when you place your hands on it, if you're the true king, it's supposed to scream or make noise. So, we of course, put our hands on the stone and, whatever. But in my series, the mythology that I've based this on is there's 4 founding tribes of Ireland. And the one founding tribe of Ireland has 4 sacred treasures, which include this Stone of Destiny. It's the only one physically, able to be seen. The others remain, a part of mythology. There's a Dagda's cauldron, there's a sword and a spear. So it's cool stuff, right? Especially if you're writing fantasy fiction. So this is a neat place though. And it's because it's so easily, referenced in history to then bring it into my stories. So, I'd make all my poor guests power through, we'd be pouring coffees and teas, down their throat to get them through because it's so close. It's so close to the airport. So and we've done this. My husband and I have stopped there on the way to other places to have, a little intro immediately, immerse ourselves into Irish history and culture. I think, there's other places there that are very interesting. Trim Castle, if you've ever heard of Trim, TRIM, is in the area. And if you ever heard the phrase "beyond the pale," do you know what that's about? Like where that came from?
I always thought it had something to do with death, but
no, surprisingly. So when the horrible English, came to take over Ireland, there was a point at which they didn't really push westward. So there's a reason why in the west of Ireland, more Gaelic, more Irish is spoken, because English wasn't mandatory. And so they retained more of their identity. But basically kind of the line of the demarcation between the settled areas, the places where the kings of England had granted land, to their supporters, whatever. So where there were bigger estates that were English estates, that was the Pale. So beyond the Pale was the wild Irish.
Wilds of Ireland. Oh, that's awesome.
So, if anyone else has another definition, go for it. Type it in the comments. I don't know, whatever. But that's what I learned from a tour guide at the Trim Castle. So that was exciting.
Yeah.
So then, Ireland's not, as England too, things aren't that far apart. They're smaller countries. So when you say, yes, I landed in Dublin on the east coast of Ireland, and then went immediately to County Donegal, which is the far northwestern county, you're talking about maybe 3 hours of drive time.
Yeah.
So, I let everybody crash on the bus while we had our professional driver, take us over.
Good planning.
So we will all survive. So County Donegal, I guess it's just because it is more remote. Everyone I find in all of Ireland is very friendly, and it's always a fun trip. But there's just something about a place that just doesn't get as many visitors, and they're very excited to tell you about things that they are proud of, in their county. So Beltany, the stone circle that is actually on the cover of my book one, and this is my when I find stuff that needs fixing copy. That's bad. Anyway, so this stone circle is a real place, and it is not far from Donegal town, like the actual little city county seat, center, and it is interesting because it is bigger in circumference than Stonehenge. And we always, the definitive stone circle thing in our head is always Stonehenge, right? With the tall blocks, but these are more like, the rocks stick up and they're more like kind of teeth in a way around the circle. But it's a taller stone circle than any of the others really in Ireland. Most of them are small in terms of hip height. Now let's question about how tall they were when they were built. Everything sinks in over time. But it's really very magical. And there's these tiny little signs, and I don't know how England does it, but when there's, sort of a archeological site, little tiny brown signs on the road with like the name, the number of kilometers, and a little arrow. And if you're driving too fast or there's too much shrubbery on the sides, you kind of miss it. So you see like Beltany, little arrow, and you end up parking at the base of this hill, and it's all farm fields. And you'll find this for a lot of monuments and things that are just, protected, but they're on private land. And people aren't allowed to disturb them, but they have to maintain access. So, you're closing gates behind you so that the sheep don't get out. And it's just a very atmospheric. Picturesque. So I have made friends online with the lady who lives at the farm at the bottom of the lane. So, and so she's always taking pictures on like Beltane, which is May Day, or the different days of, when you talk about like the Celtic, wheel of the year. So the solstices, the equinoxes, and the days in between, which are called cross quarter days. So she's in tune with this, and she'll go post on Facebook a picture of Beltany, the stone circle. So it's a lovely place to visit. The one time that I was really wanting to take a lot of pictures there, it was a very cloudy day, as you get in that area. And the sun came out just at the right time and gave us some really wonderful pictures. But it's an interesting place just because these are off the beaten path, these places. So I often so Beltany was the inspiration for this whole series, that stone circle, because my brain starts to think, well, why was this here? What did they do? And really you had to, beyond the archaeological record and what was maybe going on in the world at that time, we're talking 5,000 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you have to start filling it in. So, very fun. But in County Donegal, there's so many beautiful places that ended up in my books. The Slieve League Cliffs. So it's Slieve, and then league, the word league. Cliffs are, now don't, kill the messenger here, whatever. But in my opinion, many times better than the Cliffs of Moher, where everyone goes on their tours. But just go a little further north, please. And there's other places where the sea cliffs are equally beautiful, like in County Mayo. But the Slieve League Cliffs are something else. And we were there during lambing season in the spring. And so the mama sheep, the ewes, had their babies out there. And I'm like, oh, they're going to fall off the edge of the cliff, but apparently they know what they're doing. But they're amazing.
And they're border collies.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right.
I have a border collie. That's why I just had to throw it in.
I totally get it. So it's wonderful and wild, and the wind comes up, and you better have a hair tie if you have long hair. And there's cliff walks that you can take that I did not take that look rather precarious. But it's just, there's something about it. Now I'm part Irish. I'm more German than Irish, but I like to claim I'm more, the other way around. But it just speaks to you. It's beautiful and just kind of, maybe it's because of also where I grew up. I'm in the middle of Wisconsin. I'm, surrounded by farm fields, but nothing overly dramatic, right? And so I'm very partial to these sea cliffs and coasts and wild islands and all that business. So as you cross through, the County Donegal, and you can be very, very far from, gas stations, whatever, watch your gas gauge, know what you're doing. But there's other places in my book that I would, hazard a guess that most people don't go to. The Inishowen Peninsula is a peninsula in County Donegal. Has the furthest the most northern point of Ireland, Malin. And if you're a Jodi Picoult fan at all, the book from a while back called The Pilot's Wife, when her husband dies in a terrorist bombing air crash, right? That is the point, the rescue point, like the point where they were going out, and she ends up there to go out to where the crash happened, to where her husband died. But it's remote, super remote. I also have another spot that you probably would not go to. It's called Doe Castle. It's a privately owned castle, but you can go onto the grounds. And one of my characters is taken captive there at one point by the evil,
by the evil town. Yeah.
The bad guys, because we have bad guys.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting experience there, and it's just beautiful. Ireland is always beautiful. I've been there in I've been there in every season. So
Mhm.
even in like February, if you want to fly or travel in the off season and make things more reasonably priced, it still can be very green. Now, Donegal at the higher elevations will get some snow, and such. So, I mean, obviously traveling in the summer is nicer because it will always be, more pleasant. But it is an island, so you end up with variable weather, but sometimes more temperate weather. So you don't always get like, crazy extremes. So
Yeah.
traveling there in February is not like being in the Midwest in February. I can guarantee that. So we would travel south. We have a lot of other places, to go to. But if you leave Donegal, you're going to go through past Sligo. You're going to go all the way down to, past the Galway area. I always would say you need to stop there. I don't have any scenes in my books in Galway, but there's a great music scene there. If you want some good pub music, we would have to stop there and hang out for a while.
I saw a band from Galway, in Arizona, uh, just like 2 weeks ago.
And I mean, do you like Irish music?
Yeah, yeah, and they were great. They're called Three Banjos Three.
Oh, I love Three Banjos.
Three Banjos yeah,
Three Banjos yeah, that's it. That's
something
it.
like that. Yeah, and they're four guys, and they only have two banjos, or or
Or the occasional third banjo. I don't know, but
right. Yeah, they were amazing.
you're
And
so
yeah,
good.
and they say just such lovely things about Galway, and you're just like, I want to go tonight. Yeah.
And we could
And we
check
could. We
airfares
should.
right now and like meet up, in O'Hare or, wherever. I go to Irish Fest in Milwaukee. Milwaukee, Wisconsin has I want to say it's the biggest Irish Fest in the US.
Oh,
And so they get all the bands in when there's no pandemic, of course. They
right.
have a book corner, a literary corner, and I've been lucky enough to be in that literary corner a couple times.
Oh,
But then when my husband comes with me, he goes to all the musical acts, and that's where he, found his love for Wee Banjo Three. Yes, right.
yeah.
It's really lively, fun music, and it's just, it's you layer in all those different experiences. I mean, you're in the pub. If you're a beer drinker, you've got lots of good choices. If you like dark beer, you've got Guinness, which is an experience if you love dark beer. I have to say that on one of our trips, we were in Galway at a pub, listening to music, and I was feeling like I was coming down with a cold. And I got what's the drink with the tea, the Irish whiskey, the honey. Is there lemon in there? Oh my gosh, it's this concoction. I swear by it. It killed those germs off. And I don't know what it would do with COVID, but like maybe that's the answer. I don't know.
It is a magical combination. It soothes the throat. It opens everything up.
Dulls the pain,
Right. Well, I would jump on a tour bus with you tomorrow, but we are running out of time today. So, just real quickly, how can our fans and how can they find you? Your websites,
So the
newsletters.
best place to go is to find me on my website. So it's just my name. So ValerieBiel.com. So VALERIE, my last name, Biel, BIEL.com. You'll have all the info on there. And if I ever decide to offer tours, that's probably where I'm going to have a landing page that says, come join me in Ireland, which would be awesome.
Right. Just click sign up.
Yes, here we go. We have dreams, right? We have dreams.
Well, thank you for being here, Val, and thank you everybody for watching Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews.
Thank you.